Hi everyone, I am Allison.
Hello, and I'm Cassidy.
And we are the co-founders of Braid, which is a networking community for women. I come from a really unique background into entrepreneurship. I started out in government, got into entrepreneurship, and then got into tech as a result. Currently, I'm the head of people and culture at Blip, which is a digital billboard company, as well as the co-founder at the Sego Awards, which is an awards here in Utah to celebrate women founders and CEOs.
Like, hearing that all come out of your mouth, I'm like, you're a busy woman.
I'm so tired most of the time.
But my name's Cassidy. I'm thinking back at how we got to know each other. But my husband was a founder of a company here in Utah called Dev Mountain, and I worked with them from day one through exit. We ended up selling the company. And Dev Mountain's first location was located in Provo, and that's how I met Allison. She was working at the city at the time, and that's how we got connected. So then once after the sale of Dev Mountain, we got in touch again, and I wanted to help Allison in her ambition of helping women entrepreneurs, and it just really aligned with what I was wanting to do in life. And so we joined together, and Braid is moving forward.
The idea behind Braid is that one strand by itself is easy to bend and break, but when you weave many together, they become strong. And that's something that we've seen in our community. Just people willing to help each other, whether it's mentorship, whether it's becoming a new client, or just referring a service provider. There's so much economic power in relationships, and that's part of why Cassie and I are so excited to talk about mentorship with you today. And because most of our interactions are through conversations, our session today is formatted as a conversation. We've put together some of the pretty commonly asked questions, or even just topics of discussion that have come up between us or within the Braid community. And we just, want to work them out with you today.
Yeah, and also share some of our own personal experiences of how mentors have been super helpful in our lives as well.
So this is just a small sampling of our amazing community. We are so passionate about helping women attain economic independence because Utah is 37th in the nation for median income for women and also 51st in the nation for the gender parity wage gap. And those numbers are really sad because
we have work to do.
We have work to do. Utah is a great place for so many things, and we have a lot of money, but it's just we're working to get more economic power in the hands of women, and we see a great opportunity through building relationships, through skills-based workshops for helping women get there.
Yes.
So a few of the questions that we're going to talk about today are, do I need to call it mentorship? Just defining what mentorship is, what it isn't, what it can be, why it's important. Also, when you should be thinking about finding a mentor. Because there's, sometimes you don't know when you should be looking for one. And we'll talk a bit about timing and things like that. The next question that we're going to address is how/where you can connect with mentors. There's so many awesome resources, especially with the many online platforms that are available, in addition to in-person events. And the last question we're going to talk about is, how do I build mentorships that last? Because we really see the value of taking a long-term perspective to all kinds of relationships. And we're going to talk about some of the things that have been helpful for us in building mentorships that are not just transactional or kind of one-off interactions. So, do I need to call it mentorship? Short answer is no. I think, at least for me, I've never actually approached somebody and asked them if they would be my mentor.
I haven't either, but I definitely have had people in my life that take that role. But it didn't start out with me being like, hey, can you be my mentor and can you help me with all the things? Unless you're paying for coaching, which is a mentorship type relationship, which we'll talk about later.
I think that oftentimes when we think about mentorship, it can seem really formal. Like, do I need to set up a regular occurring calendar item where I check in and have, a 1 hour long session with my mentor? And at least for us, the answer has been no. There doesn't have to be a lot of formality to mentorship. It's just kind of evaluating what it is that you need and what it is that maybe somebody else can help you with. A lot of the times, like, mentors, are older or are more advanced in the career path or business phase than you. But a mentor can also be somebody who's a lot younger than you, or, earlier in business or career. It can be anybody who has knowledge or a specific skill set that you don't have.
Right. So we were talking about how a lot of times mentorship is associated with business, which is true. It's very valuable to get mentorship when it comes to running your business. But mentorship can also take different forms. Like, for instance, say you're married and you see someone that has a really great marriage relationship, and you're like, I want to get to know them and see what works for them in their marriage, and I want to become friends with them. So becoming friends with people that emulate characteristics that you want to achieve is a process of mentorship. And so it doesn't just have to take one form or one type of area in your life that you can get mentorship on.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That I think that kind of goes along with our theme of mentorship not needing to be formal.
Right.
Like in just even setting up the relationship, that doesn't have to be formal. And the areas in your life in which you seek mentorship doesn't have to be formal.
And you can have multiple mentors for different aspects of life too at once.
There are really no limits, which is really cool. So I think something that I also love about mentorship, which is on our next slide, one of our favorite people, Oprah. I love this quote: "A mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside yourself." And for me and Cassidy, I think that's been true. And this is something we even do for each other. Like, when we're feeling down or discouraged about something, we have a conversation, and it's energizing to hear just even somebody else's perspective on what's happening in career, in business.
I think it's always best to have someone that you can reach out to that is a third party and not invested in whatever's going on in your life. So whether it's business, whether it's marriage, whether it's just a relationship with a son or daughter, it's being able to talk to someone outside of that world and get perspective and hear how they see things are going, I guess.
So valuable.
Agreed. Okay, so why is mentorship important? The biggest thing is mentorship can save you so much time. So much time. You can be able to go and talk with someone about a big problem that you're facing, particularly in business, and say, how do I handle this problem? The reality is that there are thousands of people that are out there that have probably experienced the hard problem you are facing right now. And so they can be able to give you advice that could speed up 5 years of learning for you. So the biggest thing is that they help shorten the learning curve and then help you be successful in whatever you're doing. I wanted to share about my personal experience. Sorry. I want to share about a personal experience I had and why mentorship is so important for me. So when we were starting Deb Mountain, we ran into a cash shortfall, and we had to bring in someone that was a really big mentor for us at the time and say, hey, we are facing a really big cash shortage. How do we handle this situation? What do we do? Where could we get funding? All these questions came up, and he sat down with us and helped us really work through a financial model that worked for us, and then helped connect us to individuals in the community that could provide us funding, and also an organization out there that provided funding to small startups. And so because of his network and his understanding of he was an entrepreneur before, and so because of his experience, he was able to come into that situation that was so challenging, so daunting for us, and be able to have, okay, I know what to do. Here's what we need. Here's what we need to gather. We need to have a financial forecast that shows the profitability of the company. Here's people we can talk to, and here's how we get funding. So we were able to get funding in order to continue doing our business. But really, I don't know if we would have been able to get through that really difficult time without bringing a mentor in that had these particular skills to help us. So that is one scenario of, many I could talk about, but that was so vital and so important to get someone with that experience in to help.
And for me, mentors have been exactly what Cassidy has described, like another source of experience, but also have just served as a third-party observer perspective to what's happening in my life and in my career. Every chapter of my career has been shaped in some way by other people. I was recently talking to my CEO at Blip about how I learn, and I was thinking about it, and number one, I learn a lot through reading, but number two, I learn so much from my conversations with other people. There are so many situations where somebody's just introduced me to a new idea, or even new people who just open up my world to things I never would have considered before.
I think there's something about talking it out that makes it even more
getting it outside of your head,
right? And more memorable for you to take it back and actually apply it, versus reading it in a book and then saying okay, how do I apply this? Obviously you can, but there's something about talking it through
and
with
making
someone.
an emotional connection with somebody,
right?
It helps almost imprint it in your brain,
right?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that. I also love how mentors can keep you accountable for goals that you have for yourself. No matter what area of your life you're working on with that specific mentor, they can also push you to think differently, or just keep going when you feel like giving up, or that maybe you can't do something. I also, something that we see a lot in Braid is mentors, even peer mentors, introducing their fellow Braiders to people and resources that they didn't know about before.
Yeah, back to why is mentorship so important? They open up their network for you.
Yeah.
And that is super valuable. Especially when you find someone that's already been successful, most likely they have successful friends as well. And so then it helps introduce you to their network of people. And talking with people that are successful, it gives you energy, it gives you motivation to want to achieve your own greatness as well.
Yeah, and it gives you hope that because you see some similarity to them, that if they can do it, I can do that too.
For sure. We talk about that all the time with women in the workforce and how important it is, because when you can see someone that looks like me and talks like me is successful, therefore I can be successful too. Truly.
And oftentimes they are willing to share, how they got there. So, next question that we want to talk about is timing for seeking mentorship.
Oops, did I go? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
When should I seek mentorship? Okay, so I wanted to do a little bit of an exercise with you guys, and I want to take 1 minute, 2 minutes for you to sit and think, where is the area in my life that I really want to improve right now? Just sit with that question. Where do you want to seek improvement? And so we'll just give you a moment to think about that, and if you can, write it down. So now that you've thought about that area, and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be just business. It can be relationships. And so now that you've thought of that, I want you to think about, when should I improve in this area? And the answer is now. Now is the time to improve on that area that you want to change. And when we think about that, a lot of times we're like, I don't have time. I know I think that, I don't have time. There's not enough time in the day. I've got work and I've got family and all the things that take up our time. But really, if you're wanting to seek improvement, you have to set a dedicated time aside in your day, block it out in your calendar to say, this is the time where I am going to do personal improvement. And this is during that time, it can be seeking resources and seeking mentorship specifically about that area of your life. And we're going to go in further, like how you actually find mentorship, but that time you set aside could be finding the person that can help you in that particular area.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of power in creating a routine, creating a habit where you are seeking to expand your knowledge and your capabilities.
Right. I was recently talking to a coach, not my coach, but someone that coaches other people. He was talking about, he would tell his wife all the time, well, when I'm done with this, I'll work on this. When I'm done with this, I'll work on this. And finally his wife was like, you say that all the time, and you're never going to get to the point where you're done with this to work on the next thing. And he's like, I had to take a moment and realize, like, yeah, and that's so true for all of us. We all feel that way. When I'm through with this season of life, then I'll work on this. But the reality is that you're never going to be finished with whatever is going on in your life. So you just have to choose a time during the day. And most people, it's an hour a day where you can work on self-development and self-improvement. And it's really valuable to set aside time for that.
So the next thing that we want to talk about is how and where you can connect with mentors. There are so many avenues for connecting. I mean, we have LinkedIn, there's even Facebook. There's so many ways to reach out to people. And I think that, with that, sometimes it's hard to know where to start.
Oh yeah, I think it's hard to know where to start too. And you do have to ask yourself the question, do I want to go the free route or do I want to pay for mentorship?
Yeah, and I guess, whether, no matter where you are looking for mentorship, Cassidy put together a great list of guiding principles that can shape those interactions or kind of shape your mentorship seeking journey.
Yeah, so if you end up going the free route, there are things that you can do. So like going to lunch with someone, finding someone in your community, joining a mastermind. I've personally never done a mastermind. Have you ever done a mastermind?
I haven't, but
I've heard they're so valuable, and more people are doing them. Sometimes you do have to pay for those. I guess it's not necessarily the free route, but sometimes they are free, and that could be a really great way to get together with like-minded individuals. And usually you can find them through Facebook groups or just Googling your area and find them online. Like Allison said, Facebook groups, LinkedIn, but also Masterclass is a really great option. I guess we're kind of going into the route of paying for mentorship and what that looks like. But Masterclass is a really great resource to find people that aren't necessarily in wherever you're located, but have really amazing skills and built incredible careers that share that knowledge with you. And then the ultimate pay for it is to get a coach. And for me, the business I work at now actually pays for a coach for me, and I find it extremely valuable. And it's the first time in my life where I've been able to have a business coach where I meet with regularly. So there are some benefits that come with actually paying for mentorship. One is that you meet regularly, which can be super helpful because when it's someone that's free or you're just kind of reaching out when you are addressing something like a really big problem, you don't have as much the accountability that comes when you do pay for a coach.
When you're investing.
Right, because they're invested in you too, right? And so they want to see you succeed because you're paying them to help have them provide you advice. And so I found it to be really, really valuable, and to just, again, have that third party where I can go to and talk about what's currently happening in the business and how I can handle these situations, and then also how I can improve. And so I think it is if you are at a place where you're like, I need to level up and I need to have accountability, I would strongly consider consider taking on paying for a coach, and that the money is actually worth it to help you get leveled up. And so, yeah, let's go into how do I find a mentor. So how do I find someone for free, or how do I find a coach? There's two ways to look at it. But the biggest thing is you have to get out there. I mean, Allison, talk about networking and the power of networking and why it's so valuable. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to do, but I feel like
sometimes it is really uncomfortable. And I hate the word networking. It feels so weird and kind of contrived. But we still use the word because everybody knows what it means. Right. But it's really like kind of meeting people and starting relationships, typically for a professional purpose. And for me, like I always, I'll give myself a pep talk before I go to a big event, because I am an introvert, and it drains me to be around a lot of people, even though I love them. But everybody's interested in telling their story. So being curious about what different people do or what they're passionate about is a great way to start a conversation with somebody who you've never met before.
Yeah, and I'm actually an extrovert. I classify myself as an extrovert, but even I'm like, oh, it's one more thing to go to, and I'm like, no, I signed up. Once you sign up, you just have to commit to going, and then after I go, I'm like, almost every time I'm like, I'm so glad I went. I met this incredible person. I met this incredible person that's doing really great things. And so you just have to find networking events and actually go and attend. Obviously, that's kind of hard right now during COVID. Yeah. But so many people have adapted. You're at this workshop right now meeting us, and there's so many online resources now of getting out there and getting to meet
including
people.
The Braid Facebook group. If you search for Braid Women in Facebook, you'll be able to find over 1,000 of our community members who are so willing to recommend solutions, to give you feedback, and just be supportive. They're awesome. And a lot of the people who interact with each other have never met each other in person. And that's actually the way that my husband makes a lot of business connections is online through Twitter.
Interesting.
Because that's where his graphic design community is, and he's actually gotten jobs and leads from just connecting with people on Twitter, which is great for him because he's an introvert as well. So networking doesn't have to always be very traditional or in person, but
but you have to get
you have to extend yourself, whether it is sending the DM asking if you can set up time for a virtual coffee meetup, or just even an email thread. There is the act of extending yourself.
I just thought of, did you see, you know who Sarah Blakely is, the founder of Spanx?
Yes.
I love her. She's awesome to follow online. She was doing a speaking engagement, and a girl went with a sign that she held up at the end that says, "Will you mentor me?" She put it on an actual sign, she was going to a concert or something, and she held it up, and Sarah saw it and was like, "Come backstage." And she's mentoring this girl, which is this young girl that started her business. But that, she had to be I'm going to this event. I like this person.
I'm putting myself out
there. And it worked for her. So I think part of it is if I reach out to this person, what if they say no? And it's well, then they said no, and you move on, right? Mm-hmm. Putting yourself out there is the biggest, I think, hurdle when it comes to finding people that can help you in your life.
With anything, just getting started can be the hardest part.
Right. So the next point is shop around. And what we mean by that is that it may take some time to find someone at these networking events that you resonate with, that is similar to you, but that has the strengths and the skills that you want to emulate at this time in your life. So be patient and keep going, even if you feel like you're I'm not meeting people that get me, or that speak to me in the way I want to be spoken to. I don't know how to say that in the right way.
I think that something that reminded me, something you said in there reminded me of my community in high school, and how I just thought, these are my best friends, they really get me. But then when I went to college, my pool of connections grew exponentially. I was like, oh, these are actually the people that I really connect with. And that's, that's part of the power of getting out there and widening your circle, is that the chances of you finding somebody who really resonates with you as a mentor increases.
Right. But it does take work. Even back to me actually getting coaching, the first coach I had, I didn't resonate with. And we met together for probably 3 to 4 months. And by the end of that time together, I was like, you know what, I just need to find someone else. So then I started asking around and asked my community and said, does anyone out there have a coach that they love and that they love working with? And I got a few recommendations, and I was able to switch. And now I'm working with a coach that I feel like understands me more and can see like what I'm trying to achieve and help me get there. So it just takes time. And sometimes working with one person doesn't work, and so then you got to switch it up.
And that's okay.
Yeah, totally okay. So then the next thing is study the person. So most likely people that have been successful or that have particular skills are probably showing those skills online somewhere, where they have a blog, maybe it's their Twitter feed, maybe it's Instagram. There's so many places, or maybe they have an e-course. What it is you should study that person and make sure like what they're teaching is actually what you want to be learning, and where you could receive, I guess, the actual advice that you're wanting to receive at this time. Any other thoughts on that?
I love that because any relationship, it's two-way. And you, like, in that process of studying a person or doing your homework, researching about them, you get to maybe even pinpoint some areas or ways that you might be able to help them.
Right.
Like, hey, I see that like you've been trying to solve this problem. I have some ideas, but I also like to ask you about how you did this other project. And I think that sometimes too, really visible mentors can get a lot of the same questions from people seeking mentorship from them. Mm-hmm. So anything you can do to set yourself apart and show that you've really been thoughtful about seeking them out and that you are really being respectful of their time can be very helpful.
Yes, I totally agree. So then the last thing is be organic about creating this relationship. And I was thinking about, actually haven't done this, but I've been really thinking that this is a way we could do lunches. When you're like, I want to meet someone and get to know you, like, let's go to lunch. But right now, I guess people are okay somewhat, at least where we are in Utah, of going to lunch together. But I actually think people have been really accustomed to Zoom now that it's almost less inconvenient for them to just say, will you jump on a 30-minute Zoom call with me? I'd love to talk to you about this. And I feel like more and more people are going to be willing to do that than you have to go and pay for their lunch. Even though I still think that's a great option. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It has been really cool to see how people in our community and other communities have adapted to connecting. Something, at first when we started quarantining, it felt really peaceful and it's like, oh, this is so relaxing. But my community very quickly adapted to meeting up through Zoom or meeting up really distant in a park. That my schedule has been as full as it was pre-COVID. But it's amazing how people who really place importance on connection and on mentorship can still make stuff happen even when they can't in the way they did before.
Right. And maybe it does seem daunting to say, okay, let's meet for an hour at this location and I'll buy your lunch, versus on both ends it's this is way more convenient and easy to just jump on a Zoom
I don't have to commute.
Right.
I don't have to pick a restaurant.
So however you meet with this person, you reach out, you want to get to know this person. Once you have had time to connect with them, the biggest thing is following up and making sure you thank them for their time, thank them for their advice. I feel like you're really good at this, of following up with people and just being very appreciative of their time. Everyone's time is so valuable, especially people's time that have developed this career or a very particular skill. Their time is super valuable. And so just being appreciative, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree. And I've started making more of an effort to be appreciative because one time I got called out for not being appreciative. Not that I wasn't appreciative, but I wasn't expressing it. So saying thank you, even writing a note after you meet up can be really great.
Yeah, and kind of looping back to where Allison started, this doesn't have to be super formal. If you are going, again, kind of the free route and just reaching out to people for advice, just let it be organic. And it doesn't have to be like, I am messaging you because I want you to be my mentor. Because that could be like really intimidating for someone, probably, if they're not used to mentoring people, or maybe they are, but it's just like seems super formal versus, hey, I want to catch up with you. I loved like learning about you. I've followed your content online. I've done my research. I feel like you are the person I want to learn from. Would you be willing to go to lunch, or would you be willing to jump on a Zoom call with me? And then take it from there and let it grow organically. And then also, if you're going like the coaching route, I think the best thing is to start looking on LinkedIn, Googling, asking your friends, and finding out kind of how much you want to spend. I can't even believe some of the people how much they charge when it comes to coaching. Like, I was like, that is like 3 times my mortgage. How are you charging that in coaching in a month? So definitely figure out where your budget is. But I think it's pretty normal to spend $500 to $1,000, and you can find really great mentors around $500.
A session or a month?
A month, which is usually 2 sessions. That's at least my experience, but you could find others that are doing it differently. But let's say your budget's $500. Set your budget and then start searching and asking people, do you know anyone that does coaching? And then just start kind of interviewing those people. They'll all do a free consult with you for their first call, and finding someone that you feel like can really help you take you to the next level.
I think it's so cool that you've had that experience and that you're able to share it.
Yeah, it's been really valuable. So I think that's what we wanted to share with you.
We did want to talk about how to build mentorships that last.
Oh, yes.
And we've kind of, dropped breadcrumbs along the way of how to do this. Like, being organic is really powerful because you want to have real relationships. You don't want it to purely be a transactional exchange. Because people like to be treated like they're people, not learning machines.
Right.
And I think that for me, what has made networking or connecting with people easier in a professional setting is thinking about people as potential friends.
Right.
Rather than as like mentor or like business associate.
I also thought about, my husband says something to us too, says something often in our home where he talks about like doing something for someone just for the sake of doing it, not like this covert contract. Because sometimes maybe actually you are the mentor and you are helping someone. It's also nice to put in your brain of like, I'm helping someone expecting nothing in return, and you live like a very much more healthy life than thinking like, I helped someone there and they didn't just do
like there's like, you don't want to keep a ledger.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's both ways of like, try to be appreciative, but also do good things for the sake of doing good things and not expecting like something in return.
Yeah, I mean, you never know like what it's like. Ripples in a pond. Like, you throw a stone and they just go out infinitely.
Right.
But thank you so much for spending time with us today. Like, we're super glad to share about mentorship and some ideas that we hope are helpful to you in your connection journey and as you're building your careers or your businesses. These are our email addresses. We'd love to hear from you. You can also search for us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook.
Maybe we should talk about our skill sets, like that we could mentor on.
Yeah. Why don't you start?
Okay. So my background in history, we didn't really go into this, but I got my degree in accounting. I became the financial controller for my husband's startup and was their financial controller from day one through exit. I'm now at another startup where I've been their financial controller there and their head of partnership relations. And so I know a lot of things around finance, accounting, payroll. I'm trying to think of
Just like operations
like in general. Raising funding, selling a company. There's a few different areas that I feel like I could provide a lot of advice on. So if you're thinking, if I want to read, feel free to email us if you feel like anything we talk about resonates with you and what you need in your life right now?
On my end, I studied comparative literature as an undergrad, so I do a lot of writing, whether it's our Instagram captions, blog posts, internal communications for Blip, which is the company that I work for full time. I'm always editing people's resumes. That's something that I've loved doing because I love helping people get jobs. Really, I actually have been doing a lot of editing lately for people who are submitting grants or proposals for different things for their businesses or nonprofits. I got an MPA, so a Master of Public Administration, and actually started in government. So I know a little bit about how local governments work and different programs and support that they can offer small businesses or even women as members of their community. And I guess on the HR end, because I do people and culture for Blip, I've done a lot of coaching on how to manage difficult conversations. Yes. And how to even brainstorm effectively with a collaborator, a colleague, a manager. Mm-hmm. So if any of those things sound interesting to you, please send me an email. Happy to chat. We're also including a promo code for our e-courses. Right now we have one out on email marketing and another one on crowdfunding. So you can find those at braidworkshop.com/e-courses. And that code should be good on both of those.
It's 30% off?
Yeah, 30% off.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to hopefully get to meet you in the Q&A. And